I'm Evelyn, 68 years old, and I've always been there for my daughter Rebecca. For birthdays, emergencies, or just a shoulder to lean on, I'm her go-to person. So when she mentioned a family vacation, my heart warmed thinking I'd finally be included. Then came the twist. "Mom, we need you to watch Baxter while we're gone." I smiled and nodded, swallowing my disappointment. Little did they know I had plans of my own. If you've ever felt underappreciated by family, share where you're watching from and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself. My life has always revolved around Rebecca. From the moment she was born 42 years ago, she became my world. I read her bedtime stories, attended every soccer game, and stayed up late helping with science projects. When she married Nicholas 15 years ago, I welcomed him with open arms. And when they blessed me with my grandchildren, Emma and Tyler, my heart couldn't have been fuller. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. What started as Mom, could you possibly turned into Mom, Yule, without even a question mark at the end. The pattern emerged so gradually I barely noticed it happening. Babysitting on date nights became watching the kids for entire weekends. Picking up groceries occasionally became doing their shopping regularly. I never complained because I loved them and wanted to help. After 4 decades teaching 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary, I finally retired last year. I'd imagined my retirement filled with book clubs, gardening, and especially travel. I'd kept a travel journal since my 20s, filling it with pictures cut from magazines of places I dreamed of visiting. The Maldives occupied the very first page, its crystal waters and white sand beaches calling to me for nearly 50 years. My house sits just 3 blocks from Rebecca's family. It's the same home where I raised her, now quieter since Harold passed away 2 years ago. His absence still aches like a phantom limb. We had plans, Harold and I. A Mediterranean cruise, a train journey through the Canadian Rockies, a safari in Tanzania. But cancer came swiftly, leaving me alone with travel brochures and unfulfilled promises. "When I retire, I'll finally see the world," I told Harold in those final days. "You do that, Evie," he whispered. "See it for both of us." But retirement came, and instead of exploring distant lands, I found myself exploring the inside of Rebecca's home more than my own. I became the on-call babysitter, house sitter, plant waterer, mail collector, and pet minder. The last one particularly tested my patience, as Baxter the golden retriever had the energy of a tornado and the training of, well, none at all. Rebecca's family lived comfortably in a 2-story colonial with a sprawling backyard. Nicholas worked as a hospital administrator, while Rebecca ran a successful interior design business from home. Emma, now 16, had inherited her mother's artistic eye and her father's quiet confidence. Tyler, 12, was all energy and mischief, reminding me so much of Rebecca at that age it sometimes made my heart catch. Last month, while helping Rebecca organize her home office, I found myself mentioning a senior center trip to Washington, D.C. "That sounds nice, Mom," she said absently, sorting through fabric samples. "What dates? I might need you to take Emma shopping for her dance that weekend." I felt that familiar twist in my stomach. The dates didn't matter. Whatever plans I made would always be secondary to their needs. I gently set down the brochure and went to make us tea instead. My friend Judith, who I've known since we started teaching together 30 years ago, noticed the change in me. "You seem down, Evelyn," she said during our weekly coffee date. "Everything okay?" "Just tired," I replied automatically. "You're always tired lately. What happened to that spark you had when you retired? The one where you were going to take cooking classes and travel?" I stirred my coffee slowly. "Life happened. Family happened. And what about your life? When do you get to live it?" Her question lingered with me for days afterward. When did I get to live my life? Hadn't I earned that right after raising a daughter alone for 10 years after her father left us? After supporting myself through night school to get my teaching degree? After 4 decades shaping young minds? After nursing Harold through his final days? The question haunted me as I watered Rebecca's plants while they spent a weekend at a lake house that, naturally, I wasn't invited to. It followed me as I took their mail in during a 3-day business trip Nicholas had to take, with Rebecca and the kids tagging along to make it a mini vacation. It whispered to me as I walked Baxter during yet another evening when they had tickets to a concert I would have enjoyed. My house felt increasingly empty. Harold's absence grew more pronounced. The travel magazines gathered dust on the coffee table. My retirement savings sat untouched in the bank. And still I said yes every time Rebecca called, which was always when she needed something, rarely just to check how I was doing. I told myself it was what mothers do. We sacrifice. We give. We put our children first, even when they're grown with children of their own. But Judith's words kept returning. When do you get to live your life? The answer, as it turned out, was about to present itself in the most unexpected way. Sunday dinners at Rebecca's house had become a tradition after Harold passed away. She worried about me being alone, which touched me despite the irony that during the week she seemed to forget this concern. That particular Sunday in April started like any other, with Nicholas grilling steaks in the backyard while Rebecca prepared a salad in the kitchen. I brought my famous apple pie, still warm from the oven. "Grandma, guess what?" Emma burst through the door as I arrived, her long brown hair flying behind her. "We're going on a cruise." "A cruise?" I set down my pie on the counter, a small flutter of excitement in my chest. Was this finally the family trip I'd be included in? How wonderful! Rebecca looked up from chopping tomatoes. "We just booked it yesterday. 10 days in the Caribbean, stopping at 5 islands. The ship has water slides and a rock climbing wall," Tyler added, appearing from nowhere as 12-year-old boys often do when food or excitement is involved. "And 3 different pools," Emma continued, "plus teen activities so I don't have to hang out with my parents the whole time." She rolled her eyes in that particular teenage way that suggested spending time with family was a form of cruel and unusual punishment. Nicholas came in from the patio, spatula in hand. "The best part is the all-inclusive dining. 7 restaurants to choose from, and I won't have to cook a single meal. Or clean up after," Rebecca added with a smile. I waited for someone to say, "And we want you to come with us, Mom." The words didn't come. Instead, conversation flowed around me about excursions to book, swimsuits to buy, and sunscreen to pack. "When is this wonderful trip?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "We leave in 3 weeks," Rebecca answered. "School lets out early this year because of construction, so we're taking advantage of the kids' break. We'll be gone for 2 weeks total, with the cruise plus a few days in Miami before and after." 2 weeks. Such a long time. I found myself nodding along as they discussed snorkeling versus parasailing, still waiting for my invitation. As Nicholas served the steaks, Rebecca turned to me casually. "So Mom, you'll be okay watching Baxter while we're gone, right? He gets so anxious at kennels, and you know how he is with strangers." The question hit like a glass of cold water to the face. Not "would you mind watching Baxter?" Or even "could you possibly watch Baxter?" But "you'll be okay watching Baxter, right?" As if my agreement was a foregone conclusion. As if my time was infinitely available. As if I had no plans or desires of my own. "Baxter," I repeated, looking toward the sliding door where the golden retriever was pressing his nose against the glass, leaving smudge marks Rebecca would undoubtedly ask me to clean later. "It would really help us out," Nicholas chimed in. "Boarding him for 2 weeks would cost a fortune. Plus he loves you, Grandma," Tyler added. "Remember how he slept on your lap last time?" What Tyler failed to mention was how Baxter had first chewed through one of my favorite throw pillows, knocked over a vase of flowers, and scratched my hardwood floors before finally exhausting himself into that deceptively angelic nap on my lap. "I don't know," I began hesitantly. 2 weeks is a long time, and Baxter needs a lot of attention and exercise. "You're retired, Mom," Rebecca said, serving salad onto plates. "It's not like you have anywhere to be." The word stung more than she could possibly know. "It's not like you have anywhere to be." As if my life was empty. As if I existed merely as a support system for her family. "We'd really appreciate it," Nicholas said. "We can't really enjoy ourselves if we're worried about Baxter the whole time." Emma looked up from her phone. "Please, Grandma. The only other option is Dad's cousin Tracy, and she lets her cats terrorize him." 3 expectant faces turned to me. Behind them, Baxter continued smudging the glass door with his nose, his tail wagging so hard his entire body shook. "Of course I'll watch him," I heard myself say, the words coming automatically despite the heaviness in my chest. "You all deserve a nice vacation." "You're the best, Mom," Rebecca beamed, returning to the discussion of which formal night outfits to pack. The conversation moved on as if my agreement was the most natural thing in the world, which in their minds, it probably was. Old reliable mom, always there, always saying yes, always putting everyone else first. I picked at my steak, no longer hungry. Through the sliding glass door, Baxter had given up on getting attention and was now digging enthusiastically in Rebecca's flower garden. No one else noticed. "We should bring Grandma something nice back," Tyler said suddenly, making me look up in surprise. For a moment, warmth spread through my chest at this thoughtful gesture from my grandson. "Definitely," Nicholas agreed. "What would you like, Evelyn?" "Any requests from the Caribbean?" Before I could answer, Rebecca laughed. "Just bring her back some rum cake. Mom loves rum cake. Remember from that cruise you and Dad took to the Bahamas years ago? The cruise Harold and I had taken to celebrate our 40th anniversary, just months before his diagnosis. The memory felt sacred, private somehow, and she was wrong. I hadn't particularly cared for the rum cake. Rum cake would be lovely," I said quietly. The drive home that evening felt longer than the usual 3 blocks. My house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, no one waiting to greet me. I sat in the car for several minutes, thinking about crystal blue waters and white sand beaches I'd never see, about family vacations I wasn't included in, about being taken for granted by the people I loved most in the world. "It's not like you have anywhere to be," Rebecca's words echoed in my mind. Perhaps it was time to change that. Monday morning arrived with a text from Rebecca. "Booking the pet sitter would have cost $980 for the 2 weeks. You're saving us so much money, Mom. Thank you. No, how are you? No, what are your plans today?" Just a reminder of how useful I was to their bottom line. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and stared out the window at my neglected garden. The azaleas needed pruning, and weeds were starting to overtake my vegetable patch. I planned to spend spring getting my hands dirty and reconnecting with the soil that had always brought me peace. Now I'd be cleaning up after Baxter instead. The doorbell rang just as I finished my coffee. Judith stood on my porch holding 2 paper cups from our favorite cafe and a paper bag that promised pastries inside. "Thought you could use breakfast delivery today," she said, stepping inside. "You left book club early last night, and you seemed upset." I took one of the cups gratefully. Was it that obvious? "Only to someone who's known you for 30 years. Want to talk about it?" We settled onto my patio furniture, and I told her about the cruise, the dog-sitting request, and Rebecca's casual dismissal of my time. "The worst part," I admitted, "is that I said yes. Again. I always say yes." Judith broke a blueberry muffin in half and handed me a piece. "Why do you say yes when you want to say no?" "Because I love them. Because I'm her mother." "And does being her mother mean you can't also be Evelyn? The woman who dreamed of seeing the world? The woman who put pictures of the Maldives in a scrapbook and said, 'Someday'?" I picked at the muffin, not meeting her eyes. "That was before Harold got sick. Before I became a widow. Before you decided your life was over too?" Judith's words were gentle but direct. "Evelyn, you're 68, not 98. You're healthy, financially stable, and retired. If not now, when?" "They need me," I protested weakly. "They take advantage of you," Judith corrected. "There's a difference. And they do it because you allow it." We sat in silence for a moment, birds chirping in the maple tree overhead. "What would you do?" Judith asked finally. "If you weren't dog-sitting for 2 weeks? What would Evelyn do for Evelyn?" The question lingered in my mind long after Judith left. What would Evelyn do for Evelyn? It had been so long since I'd considered what I wanted. What would bring me joy? What dreams remained unfulfilled? That afternoon, I found myself pulling out the old travel journal from the bookshelf where it had sat gathering dust. The spine cracked as I opened it, revealing pages yellowed with age but filled with dreams still vibrant. The Maldives spread across the first 2 pages, images of overwater bungalows and impossibly blue lagoons carefully cut and pasted decades ago. "We'll go there for our 50th anniversary," Harold had promised once. We only made it to 43. I ran my fingers over the pictures, feeling something stir inside me. A longing. A whisper of the woman I used to be before I became only someone's mother, Someone's grandmother, someone's convenient helper. On impulse, I opened my laptop and typed Maldives vacations into the search bar. Pages of results appeared, each more tempting than the last. Luxury resorts, snorkeling among coral reefs, sunsets that painted the sky in impossible colors, and prices that made me wince but weren't actually beyond my means, especially with the travel fund Harold and I had set aside all those years ago. See it for both of us, he had said. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Was I really considering this? Running away while my family was on their own vacation? The thought felt deliciously rebellious and terrifying all at once. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Can you take the kids shopping for cruise clothes tomorrow? Nicholas and I both have meetings all day. I stared at the message, feeling the familiar weight of obligation pressing down on me. Then I looked back at my laptop screen, at a photo of a woman about my age sitting on a pristine beach, smiling at the sunset with not a care in the world. What would Evelyn do for Evelyn? Sorry, I have plans tomorrow, I typed back, my heart racing as if I just told an outrageous lie instead of simply claiming my own time. The phone rang almost immediately. Rebecca's name flashed on the screen. Mom? What do you mean you have plans? What plans? The surprise in her voice stung. Was it really so shocking that I might have a life of my own? I'm meeting Judith for lunch and then we're going to an art exhibit, I said, inventing quickly. Can't you reschedule? The kids really need new clothes, and the stores will be packed on the weekend.
I'm sorry, sweetie.
Judith already bought the tickets for the exhibit. They're non-refundable. Another small lie, but one that felt necessary for self-preservation. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Rebecca wasn't accustomed to hearing no from me. Well, I guess we'll figure something out, she said finally, disappointment evident in her voice. Maybe you could take them Thursday instead. I'll check my calendar and let you know, I replied, surprising myself with this newfound ambiguity rather than an immediate yes. After we hung up, I turned back to my laptop with a strange sense of exhilaration. For the first time in years, I had prioritized myself even in this small way. It felt terrifying. It felt wonderful. I spent the next hour researching Maldives resorts, comparing prices and amenities. The idea that had started as a fleeting fantasy was taking shape into something real, something possible. There was a resort with an available over-water bungalow. There were flights that would put me in paradise while my family was still cruising the Caribbean. There was even a special for solo travelers that would save me nearly 30%. What had started as a rebellious thought was becoming a plan, a real plan. My heart raced with equal parts excitement and anxiety. Could I really do this? Just book a trip to the other side of the world alone at my age? When do you get to live your life? Judith's question echoed again. Now I decided. I get to live it now. I took a deep breath and entered my credit card information. The confirmation email arrived moments later. 7 days at Sapphire Lagoon Resort in the Maldives, departing the day before my family returned from their cruise. I would be lying on a beach halfway around the world when they came home expecting to find me waiting dutifully with their dog. The guilt came immediately. A lifetime of putting others first hard to overcome in a single afternoon. What about Baxter? What about their homecoming? What about being reliable, dependable Grandma Evelyn? I nearly called the resort to cancel, but then my phone buzzed with another text from Rebecca. If you're busy tomorrow, can you at least pick up Emma's dress from the tailor? It's ready and I won't have time. Not how was your day, Mom? Not, I understand you have plans. Just another request. Another assumption that my time was less valuable than hers. I left the confirmation email in my inbox, unopened but not deleted. A possibility. A promise. A rebellion. Over the next few days, the fantasy solidified into reality. I called Martha, my neighbor of 20 years, and asked if she'd be willing to take Baxter for the final day before the family returned. To my surprise, she agreed readily. Good for you, Evelyn, she said when I explained my plan. It's about time you did something for yourself. I made lists of what to pack, researched Maldivian customs, and watched travel videos that made my heart soar with anticipation. Each time doubt crept in, another thoughtless comment or presumptuous request from Rebecca pushed it away. Mom, we'll need you to water the plants daily while we're gone too. Can you make sure to forward any important mail to our hotel? The kids want you to record their shows while we're away so they don't miss anything. Each request came without a real question, without consideration for my own plans or preferences. Each one strengthened my resolve to follow through with my secret vacation. 1 week before their departure, Rebecca dropped off a 3-page list of instructions for Baxter's care, their home maintenance, and various other tasks they expected me to handle in their absence. It seems like a lot, I ventured, scanning the detailed schedule for the dog's meals, medications, and exercise requirements. Rebecca barely looked up from her phone. You'll be fine, Mom. It's not like you have much else going on. There it was again. The casual dismissal of my life as empty and unimportant. The assumption that my time existed only to serve their needs. That night, I opened the confirmation email and printed my own travel documents. No more doubts. No more guilt. Evelyn was finally going to do something for Evelyn. And if my family didn't like it, well, perhaps it was time they learned that I was more than just their convenient safety net. I was a woman with dreams of my own, dreams I'd put on hold long enough. Paradise was waiting, and for once in my life I wasn't going to say no. The morning of their departure arrived with chaos as I'd expected. I drove to their house at 7 a.m. to find suitcases sprawled across the living room, Rebecca frantically searching for passports, Nicholas on a last-minute work call, and the children arguing over who got the window seat on the plane. Mom, thank goodness. Rebecca exhaled when I walked in. Can you make sure the kids eat breakfast while I finish packing? And Nicholas needs coffee. And Baxter hasn't been walked yet. Just like that, I was put to work, not even offered a cup of coffee myself before being assigned tasks. I made toast for the kids, brewed coffee for Nicholas, and took Baxter for a quick walk during which he managed to find a mud puddle despite the dry weather we'd been having. The important numbers are on the fridge, Rebecca said, rushing past me with an armload of beach towels. Vet, neighbors, our hotel in Miami, and the cruise line's emergency contact. Baxter's medication schedule is there too. Twice daily with food, I recited, having dogs sat enough times to know the routine. And he needs the special food for his sensitive stomach. Right. And don't forget he needs exactly 30 minutes of exercise in the morning and 45 minutes in the evening. And he can't have any human food, especially chocolate or grapes. And make sure to brush him every other day. And Rebecca, I interrupted gently. I've watched Baxter before. We'll be fine. She paused, looking momentarily guilty. I know, Mom. I just worry. And we really appreciate this. We couldn't go otherwise. For a brief moment I saw my daughter again, not the whirlwind of demand she'd become. Her genuine gratitude softened something in me, making me question my secret plans. Then Tyler bounded down the stairs. Grandma, we made a list of shows to record, he announced, thrusting a paper into my hands with at least 20 titles scrawled in his messy handwriting. And I need you to water my science project every day, Emma added, not looking up from her phone. If it dies, I'll fail biology. And just like that, I was back to being the family utility rather than a family member. My resolve strengthened once more. The actual departure was a flurry of last-minute instructions, hurried hugs, and reminders to call if anything goes wrong. But try not to let anything go wrong. No one asked if I would miss them. No one suggested they would miss me. The assumption remained that my life would continue in neutral until their return brought it back into gear. I stood in the driveway waving as their packed SUV pulled away, Baxter whining beside me as he watched his family leave without him. I know how you feel, I told him, patting his golden head. The first day alone with Baxter went as expected. He moped around the house searching for his family, refused to eat his breakfast, and gave me doleful looks as if I were personally responsible for his abandonment. By evening, he'd accepted his fate enough to eat dinner and allow me to take him for his required 45-minute walk, during which he lunged at every squirrel and nearly dislocated my shoulder twice. The second day brought the destruction phase. While I was in the bathroom, Baxter chewed through one of Rebecca's decorative pillows, leaving a trail of stuffing across the living room. Later, he dug up a corner of the garden where I'd just finished watering Emma's science project. That evening he managed to knock a framed family photo off the wall, cracking the glass. I swept up the mess, replaced the pillow with one from my own house that Rebecca probably wouldn't notice was different, and replanted the disturbed section of garden. All the while, Baxter watched me with those innocent brown eyes that somehow never reflected the chaos he created. By the fourth day, we'd settled into an uneasy routine. Morning walk, breakfast, midday bathroom break in the backyard, afternoon nap, for both of us, evening walk, dinner, and then television while Baxter sprawled across my lap despite being far too large for such an arrangement. My back ached from sleeping in the guest room, which had a mattress better suited for children than a woman in her 60s with occasional arthritis. The family texted sporadically, always with pictures of their adventures, but rarely with questions about home. Tropical drinks on the beach in Miami. The kids posing on the deck of the massive cruise ship. Nicholas trying parasailing. Rebecca getting a beachside massage. Each image reinforced that they were having the time of their lives while I was picking up dog waste and lint rolling my clothes free of golden retriever fur. "How's everything going?" Rebecca would text occasionally. "Fine," I'd respond, not mentioning the pillow casualty or the fact that Baxter had developed a habit of howling along with the theme song of Tyler's favorite show. During our occasional video calls, they'd talk over each other, sharing exciting stories about their excursions, barely pausing to ask about things at home before launching into another tale of Caribbean adventure. "The water is amazing, Mom. So clear you can see straight to the bottom. I tried snorkeling and saw a sea turtle. The food is incredible. 7 restaurants to choose from." When I tried to mention that Baxter seemed to be missing them, Rebecca quickly responded, "He's fine, Mom. He loves staying with you. Anyway, you should see the sunset from our balcony." And they were off again, showing me views I could only dream about while dismissing any small concerns from home. Their paradise. My responsibility. Each night after settling Baxter, I would open my laptop and look at pictures of the Maldives resort where I'd be staying in just a few days. I'd check my flight status, review my packing list, and feel the simultaneous thrill and terror of my impending adventure. By the end of the first week, a strange thing happened. I began to enjoy Baxter's company. Without the rest of the family creating constant demands, the dog and I developed a companionable routine. We took longer walks than required, exploring parts of the neighborhood I rarely visited. I discovered he had a talent for catching tennis balls that I would throw for him in the backyard. He learned that if he sat politely while I ate dinner, I would slip him a small piece of chicken despite the no human food rule. "You're not so bad when it's just the two of us," I told him one evening as we sat on the back porch watching fireflies emerge. He rested his head on my knee and looked up with those soulful eyes. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt about my plans to leave him with Martha. Then I reminded myself that he would only be without family for one day, while I had been without a real vacation for decades. The texts from the family grew less frequent as they immersed themselves in their vacation. When Rebecca did call, it was usually to ask if I'd checked on something specific, or handled some task they'd forgotten to mention before leaving. "Did you remember to turn off the sprinkler system? We got a weather alert about possible flooding back home. Can you go through Emma's email and print any summer assignment information her teacher sent? Did that package with Nicholas's new golf clubs arrive? Can you make sure it's not sitting on the porch? Never how are you doing, Mom? Or we miss you." Always tasks, requests, demands on my time and energy while they lived it up in paradise. 3 days before their scheduled return, I finalized the arrangements with Martha for Baxter's care. I packed my suitcase and tucked it into the trunk of my car where no one would see it if they happened to drive by. I confirmed my flight, arranged for airport transportation, and even bought a new sun hat and sandals for my trip. The last call with the family came the night before I was set to leave. They were finishing their cruise and heading back to Miami for 2 days before flying home. "We can't wait to see you, Mom," Rebecca said, the first acknowledgement that they had perhaps missed my presence. "And wait till you see all our pictures," Emma added. "I got you something cool, Grandma," Tyler chimed in, his face too close to the camera. "That sounds wonderful," I replied, ignoring the twinge of guilt. "I can't wait to hear all about your adventures." We said our goodbyes, and I promised to have the house clean and welcoming for their return. Another small lie in what had become a necessary deception. That night, as I set out Baxter's food and toys for Martha, I wrote a detailed note explaining his care requirements. Then I wrote another note, this one for Rebecca and her family, explaining my absence. I kept it simple and direct. Dear Rebecca, Nicholas, Emma, and Tyler, after taking care of Baxter and the house while you enjoyed your Caribbean vacation, I decided I deserved a vacation too. By the time you read this, I'll be in the Maldives fulfilling a lifelong dream. Baxter is with Martha next door. I'll be back in a week. Enjoy the rum cake you brought me. Love, Mom/Grandma. I placed it prominently on the kitchen counter where they would see it immediately upon returning home. Then I went to bed, setting my alarm for 4 a.m. to ensure I'd have plenty of time to drop Baxter at Martha's before heading to the airport. As I drifted off to sleep, I imagined the look on Rebecca's face when she read my note. Shock probably. Perhaps anger. Maybe, just maybe, a dawning understanding that her mother was a person with dreams and desires of her own, that I existed beyond my usefulness to them. Tomorrow, Evelyn would finally do something for Evelyn. The thought carried me into peaceful sleep despite Baxter snoring from his bed in the corner of the room. The morning of my departure arrived with a pink sunrise that seemed like a good omen. I quietly gathered my luggage, loaded my car, and gently roused Baxter for his morning routine. He seemed to sense something was different, watching me with curious eyes as I moved efficiently through the house, double-checking that everything was in order before my absence. Martha arrived at 6 a.m. as promised, coffee in hand and a sympathetic smile on her face. Today's the day, she said, accepting Baxter's leash. Are you nervous? Terrified, I admitted, but excited too. I haven't traveled alone since before Rebecca was born. You deserve this, Evelyn. Have a Mai Tai for me. With a final pat on Baxter's head and a grateful hug for Martha, I was off, driving toward the airport and the greatest adventure of my life. The weight of responsibility lifted with each mile, replaced by a giddy anticipation I hadn't felt in decades. The airport buzzed with early morning travelers. I navigated check-in, security, and boarding with surprising ease despite my inexperience. My seat neighbor on the first flight, a young woman named Caitlin heading to a business conference, helped me figure out the entertainment system and recommended meditation videos to help with my flight anxiety. First vacation in years? She asked, noticing my nervous excitement. First vacation ever, really? Just for me, I mean. That's awesome, she said with genuine enthusiasm. Where are you headed? The Maldives, I replied, still barely believing it myself. Solo travel changed my life, Caitlin told me. There's something powerful about navigating the world on your own terms. Her words stayed with me through the flight to Los Angeles, the layover, and the longer international flight that followed. On my own terms. That's what this trip represented. Not selfishness, not abandonment of family, but reclaiming my life on my own terms. The final approach to Malé, the capital of the Maldives, took my breath away. From the airplane window, the atolls appeared like jewels scattered across velvet blue fabric, each ringed with white sand beaches and turquoise lagoons. Even through my exhaustion after nearly 24 hours of travel, the beauty brought tears to my eyes. We made it, Harold, I whispered. I'm seeing it for both of us. From Malé, a seaplane transported me and several other travelers to Sapphire Lagoon Resort. The young pilot pointed out various islands and marine life visible from our low altitude. I spotted a pod of dolphins, their sleek bodies cutting through the water in perfect synchronization, and felt a childlike wonder I thought I'd lost years ago. The resort staff greeted arriving guests with cold towels and fresh coconut water. A young woman named Amira introduced herself as my personal concierge and escorted me via golf cart to my overwater bungalow. This is where I'll be staying? I gasped when she opened the door. The bungalow extended over the crystal-clear lagoon, with glass floor panels revealing colorful fish swimming beneath. A king-sized bed faced floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. The bathroom featured a soaking tub positioned to watch the sunset. A private deck included steps leading directly into the lagoon. Is everything to your satisfaction, Ms. Wallace? Amira asked. I could only nod, words failing me at the realization that this paradise was mine for the next week. Mine alone, with no demands, no expectations, no responsibility for anyone but myself. After unpacking and a brief nap to combat jet lag, I ventured to the resort's main restaurant for dinner. The hostess seated me at a table for one overlooking the water, where I watched the sun sink below the horizon in a spectacular display of orange and pink. "First time in the Maldives?" asked an older gentleman at the next table, noticing my awestruck expression. "First time anywhere this exotic," I admitted. "I'm Gerald," he said. "My wife Marilyn and I are celebrating our 50th anniversary. What brings you to paradise?" "I'm Evelyn. And I'm celebrating myself, I suppose. Decades of putting everyone else first." Marilyn, an elegant woman with silver hair, joined our conversation. "Good for you. I told Gerald when our kids were grown that it was our turn to live. We've been traveling ever since." Their warmth and easy conversation drew me in, and they invited me to join their table. By dessert, we were exchanging life stories and travel recommendations like old friends. They insisted I join them for snorkeling the next morning, promising to show me the best coral formations they'd discovered during their stay. "We've adopted you," Marilyn declared. "Every solo traveler needs a temporary family." Back in my bungalow that night, I checked my phone out of habit before remembering the international data charges. I had intended to send a quick message to Martha checking on Baxter, but decided it could wait until morning. For tonight, I would simply exist in this moment, listening to the gentle lapping of waves beneath my temporary home. The next morning brought new adventures. True to their word, Gerald and Marilyn collected me for snorkeling, patiently showing me how to use the equipment and staying close as I nervously entered the water. The underwater world revealed itself in spectacular fashion, with coral in shapes and colors I never imagined and fish that seemed painted by an artist's brush. "Look there," Gerald pointed, and I turned to see a sea turtle gliding effortlessly through the water nearby, unperturbed by our presence. For the first time in my life, I felt truly present, not thinking about anyone else's needs or planning the next day's tasks. Just existing in the beauty of the moment. The days that followed settled into a rhythm of breakfast on my private deck, mornings exploring with my new friends, afternoons reading or napping in the sun, and evenings enjoying exquisite meals under the stars. I tried yoga on the beach, learned to paddleboard, falling off numerous times to the amusement of watching guests, and even allowed myself the luxury of a massage at the overwater spa. On my third day, I checked my phone and found 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages from Rebecca. My heart raced momentarily until I confirmed with Martha that Baxter was fine, and the family had simply arrived home to find my note. Their messages ranged from confusion to concern to anger. "Mom, where are you? This isn't funny. Mom, seriously, call us when you get this. I can't believe you would just leave like this. Are you trying to teach us some kind of lesson?" The last message, sent just hours before, had a different tone.
Mom, I'm sorry.
"Please just let us know you're safe. We're worried." I sent a quick text to Rebecca. "I'm safe and having a wonderful time. We'll call when I return. Love you all." Then I turned my phone off again and returned to the present moment, refusing to let guilt intrude on the peace I'd found. That evening at dinner, I confided in Gerald and Marilyn about my impromptu escape and the family I'd left confused back home. "You know what I think?" Marilyn said after listening attentively. "I think you've given them a valuable gift." "A gift?" I repeated, confused. "The gift of seeing you as a whole person with your own needs and desires, not just as a convenient resource." Gerald nodded agreement. "My mother lived with us for 15 years. We loved her dearly, but sometimes took her presence for granted. It wasn't until she announced she was moving to a senior community that wanted more independence that we realized how much we'd come to see her as an extension of our household rather than as her own person." "Were you upset with her?" I asked. "Initially, yes," he admitted. "Change is uncomfortable, but it ultimately transformed our relationship for the better. We started really seeing her again." Their perspective eased the lingering guilt I'd been carrying. Perhaps this abrupt departure was exactly what my relationship with Rebecca needed, a shock to the system that would reset our dynamics. As the week continued, I found myself transformed by the experience of solitude and self-determination. I made decisions based solely on what I wanted to do each day. I talked to strangers who became friends. I took pictures not to show others but to capture moments that moved me. I wrote in a journal I'd brought, reflecting on who I was and who I wanted to be in this next chapter of my life. On my last evening, I sat on my private deck watching the stars reflect on the still water of the lagoon. The woman who had arrived anxious and guilty a week ago was not the same woman preparing to return home. I had discovered something valuable in the Maldives beyond the stunning vistas and luxury accommodations. I had rediscovered myself, the Evelyn who existed before and beyond my roles as mother and grandmother. I picked up my phone and turned it on, ready to face whatever awaited me back home. There were more messages from Rebecca, the tone evolving from anger to understanding. I get it now, Mom. I really do. We've taken advantage of your time and generosity. I'm sorry. The kids miss you. We all do. But we hope you're having an amazing time. Dad would be proud of you for doing this. I should have taken you with us on our cruise. The last message brought tears to my eyes. Yes, Harold would be proud. He had always encouraged my dreams, even when life's responsibilities put them on hold. I called Martha for a final update on Baxter and the family. They were shocked at first, she reported. Rebecca especially. But I think it's been good for them, Evelyn. They've had to manage without their safety net for once. And Baxter. Thriving. Tyler's been walking him twice daily. I think the boy needed the responsibility. I fell asleep that night with a peaceful heart, ready to return home but forever changed by my week of freedom. The Maldives had given me more than beautiful memories. It had given me back myself. The return journey felt shorter somehow, my mind occupied with thoughts of the conversations to come and the new boundaries I would establish. As the plane began its descent into my hometown airport, I felt neither guilt nor anxiety, only a calm certainty that I had done exactly what I needed to do. Paradise had been everything I dreamed of for 50 years. But the real journey was just beginning. My flight landed at 5:30 in the evening, just as the sun was setting over the city. Exhaustion from the long journey competed with nervousness about facing my family. I had texted Rebecca upon landing to let her know I was back but said nothing about when I'd be home, wanting a few hours to decompress before the inevitable confrontation. The taxi dropped me at my house where I found an unexpected sight. My front porch light was on, and through the windows I could see movement inside. Someone was waiting for me. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked up the path with as much dignity as one can muster after 20+ hours of travel. Before I could even insert my key, the door flew open. "Grandma!" Tyler launched himself at me, nearly knocking me backward down the steps. "You're home. Did you see sharks? Did you swim in the ocean? Did you bring me anything?" Emma appeared behind him, her usual teenage aloofness momentarily abandoned as she too came forward for a hug. "Your tan looks amazing, Grandma." Only then did I notice Rebecca standing in the hallway, her expression unreadable. Nicholas hovered behind her, looking uncomfortable. "Kids, give Grandma some space," Rebecca said quietly. "Let her come inside and sit down. She's had a long flight." Surprised by this consideration, I wheeled my suitcase into the living room where I discovered more unexpected sights. A vase of fresh flowers on the coffee table, the aroma of something delicious coming from the kitchen, and Baxter, who greeted me with enthusiastic tail wagging but, remarkably, didn't jump up on me. "We thought you might be hungry after your flight," Nicholas said, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Rebecca made your favorite, chicken pot pie." I looked at my daughter, trying to gauge her mood. Her smile seemed forced, her movements stiff as she took my coat. "You didn't have to do all this," I said. "We wanted to," she replied, not quite meeting my eyes. "You must be tired. Why don't you freshen up while I serve dinner?" This careful politeness was unexpected and somewhat unnerving. I had prepared myself for anger, for demands for explanations, not for this strange formality. Nevertheless, I gratefully used the opportunity to wash my face and change into fresh clothes before joining them at the dining table. The meal began with awkward small talk about my flight and the weather, everyone dancing around the elephant in the room. Finally, Tyler, with the directness only a 12-year-old can muster, broke the tension. "So why did you ditch us, Grandma? Mom was super mad." "Tyler!" Rebecca exclaimed, her cheeks flushing. I set down my fork and looked directly at my daughter. "I think that's a fair question. And I think your mother deserves an honest answer." Rebecca shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Mom, you don't have to explain. We should have invited you on our cruise. It was thoughtless. This isn't about the cruise, Rebecca, I said gently. This is about patterns that have developed over years. This is about me being treated as a convenience, rather than as a person with my own life and dreams. Nicholas cleared his throat. Evelyn, we never meant to take advantage of your generosity. I know you didn't, I acknowledged. But intention and impact are different things. So you went to the Maldives to punish us? Rebecca asked, a hint of the anger I'd expected finally breaking through. I went to the Maldives for me, I corrected. Because at 68 years old, I finally decided that my dreams matter too. That my time is valuable. That saying yes to myself sometimes means saying no to others, even people I love. Emma, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. I think it's cool you went on an adventure, Grandma. I just wish you told us first instead of leaving a note. Would you have understood if I had? I asked her honestly. She considered this, then shook her head. Probably not. We're pretty used to you always being available. Her insight, surprising from a 16-year-old, seemed to strike a chord with Rebecca, whose expression softened. When I found your note, Rebecca said slowly, my first reaction was panic, then anger. How could you just leave? What if something happened to you halfway around the world? What if we needed you? And what about what I might need? I asked softly. Rebecca looked down at her plate. That's what Dad said. Nicholas. He pointed out that we call you when we need a sitter or help with errands, but rarely just to check in or include you in fun things. She swallowed hard. He said we treat you like the family utility, not the family matriarch. Nicholas nodded. After the initial shock wore off, we had some honest conversations about how we've been taking your time and generosity for granted. We made a family meeting about it, Tyler piped up. And we made rules about not assuming Grandma can always help us. I looked around the table in surprise. This was not the reaction I had anticipated. Instead of defending their behavior, they had actually reflected on it. A lump formed in my throat. I didn't go to hurt you, I said. But I did need to show you and myself that I still have dreams worth pursuing. That being a mother and grandmother doesn't mean I stopped being Evelyn. Rebecca reached across the table and took my hand. I get it now, Mom. I really do. And I'm sorry we made you feel invisible. Tell her about Aunt Judith, Tyler urged. Rebecca grimaced. Mom, your friend Judith dropped by while you were gone. She, gave us quite the lecture about how we treat you. She mentioned something about us treating you like an on-call unpaid servant, Nicholas added with a wry smile. She's quite formidable. I couldn't help laughing, imagining Judith giving my family a piece of her mind. She's been trying to get me to stand up for myself for years. She also mentioned you've had pictures of the Maldives in a scrapbook since before I was born, Rebecca said quietly. Why didn't you ever tell me that was your dream destination? Because it didn't seem important enough to mention, I admitted. My dreams always took a back seat to everyone else's needs. That changes now, Nicholas declared. In fact, we have something for you. He nodded to Emma, who hurried from the room and returned with a wrapped package. I opened it to find a beautiful leather-bound journal with my name embossed on the cover. For planning your next adventure, Emma explained. We figured the Maldives was just the beginning. Tears welled in my eyes as I ran my fingers over the supple leather. Thank you. There's more, Rebecca said. We've been talking, and we want to set up a regular family dinner every Sunday. Not at my house but at restaurants so no one has to cook or clean up. And we want to plan a real family vacation next summer. One that includes you. And in the meantime, Nicholas added, we're establishing some new family rules about respecting everyone's time, including yours. Tyler nodded solemnly. And I'm in charge of walking Baxter now. It's my responsibility. I looked around at their earnest faces, feeling a wave of love and gratitude. This outcome exceeded my wildest hopes. Not only had they understood my message, but they'd taken concrete steps to change their behavior. There's one more thing, Rebecca said, looking nervous. While you were gone, I realized something important. I've been treating you the way I'm afraid Emma will treat me someday. Taking me for granted, seeing me as a resource rather than a person. Her voice caught. I don't want that for either of us. The honesty of her confession broke the last of the tension. I rose from my chair and moved to embrace my daughter, who stood to meet me. I'm so proud of you, I whispered in her ear. For hearing me. For understanding. I love you, Mom, she whispered back. And I'm sorry. The evening continued with them asking genuine questions about my trip. I showed them pictures on my phone, described the colorful fish and pristine beaches, and told them about Gerald and Marilyn, my adopted travel family. As the night wound down, Rebecca helped me carry my suitcase back to my car, insisting I was too tired to unpack tonight and should rest. At my car, she hesitated. Mom, are you still mad at us? I was never mad, sweetheart. I replied honestly. Just sad that I'd become invisible to the people I love most. You're not invisible anymore, she promised. In fact, you've never been more clearly seen. As I drove the short distance home, I reflected on the unexpected gift my rebellion had given us all. The opportunity to reset, to see each other with fresh eyes, and to build a healthier relationship moving forward. My little house welcomed me with familiar comfort after a week away. I was exhausted but too wired to sleep, my mind still processing the surprising turn of events. I unpacked only my toiletries and night clothes, leaving the rest for morning, and made myself a cup of chamomile tea. Sitting in my favorite chair, I noticed a stack of mail on the side table that hadn't been there when I left. A note in Rebecca's handwriting sat on top. Collected your mail for you. Also watered your plants and took out your trash. Least we could do while you were having your great adventure. Love you, Mom. I smiled and picked up my new journal, opening to the first blank page. At the top I wrote, Next Adventure. And below it, To be continued. The Maldives had been magnificent. But the real victory was coming home to a family who finally saw me not just as Grandma Evelyn, but as Evelyn Wallace, a woman with dreams and desires all her own. And that was the most beautiful vista of all. The week following my return from the Maldives brought a gradual adjustment to our new family dynamic. The initial understanding shown by Rebecca and her family needed to be translated into daily actions. And as with any change, there were occasional missteps. The first test came just 3 days after my return when Rebecca called on Tuesday morning. Mom, I hate to ask, but is there any chance you could pick Emma up from school today? Her dance practice was canceled, and Nicholas and I both have meetings we can't reschedule. The old Evelyn would have immediately agreed, rearranging her own plans without hesitation. The new Evelyn paused before responding. What time does she need to be picked up? 3:15, Rebecca replied. I know it's last minute. I consulted my calendar, where I'd begun scheduling my own activities more intentionally. I have a book club meeting at 2 that usually runs until 4. I could pick her up after that. Oh. Rebecca sounded surprised by my hesitation. I guess I could ask Carol from next door. Or, I suggested gently, Emma could wait in the library until I'm finished. It would be about 45 minutes. There was a moment of silence as Rebecca processed this compromise. You know what? That's actually a good solution. She can get started on homework while she waits. Thanks, Mom. It was a small interaction, but it felt significant. I had stated my own plans and offered a reasonable alternative rather than automatically canceling my commitments. Rebecca had accepted this new boundary without guilt trips or showing disappointment. Progress. The following Sunday brought our first official family dinner at a local Italian restaurant. Nicholas insisted on paying despite my protests, and everyone made an effort to include me in the conversation, asking about my week and my upcoming plans. I joined a photography class, I told them, showing them some practice shots I'd taken around the neighborhood. The Maldives made me realize how much I enjoy capturing beautiful moments. These are really good, Grandma, Emma said, scrolling through the photos on my phone. You should post them on Instagram. Instagram? At my age. I laughed. Age doesn't matter, she insisted. Lots of seniors have amazing accounts. I could help you set one up. That afternoon, Emma spent 2 hours at my house, patiently teaching me how to use Instagram. We created an account called Evelyn's Senior Adventures, and she showed me how to edit photos, write captions, and use hashtags. It was the longest one-on-one time we'd spent together in years, and I treasured the connection. The next test of our new dynamic came when Nicholas called to ask if I could watch Baxter during their upcoming weekend trip to visit his parents. "We completely understand if you can't," he added quickly. "We can board him if needed." "Actually, I'd be happy to have Baxter for the weekend," I replied, surprising myself with the genuine sentiment. "But I'd like to keep him at my house this time if that works. My back doesn't do well on your guest bed." "Of course," Nicholas agreed readily. "We'll drop him and all his things at your place before we leave. And Evelyn? Thanks for considering it rather than feeling obligated." Another small victory in establishing healthy boundaries. 3 weeks after my return, Rebecca invited me for coffee, just the two of us. We sat at a corner table in a quiet cafe, both a bit nervous about this intentional mother-daughter time that wasn't centered around a task or favor. "I've been doing some thinking," she began after we'd settled with our drinks, "about why I've fallen into the habit of taking you for granted." I waited, giving her space to collect her thoughts. "You've always been so capable, Mom. When Dad left us, you never faltered. You worked, went to school, and still managed to make it to my soccer games. You made it look effortless." "It wasn't," I said softly. "Not even close. I know that now. But as a child, I just saw Supermom. And I think part of me has always expected you to maintain that role, even when I became an adult with my own family." She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "It wasn't fair to keep seeing you as just an extension of my needs. We both played into that pattern," I acknowledged. "I wanted to be needed. After Harold died, being useful to your family gave me purpose. But somewhere along the way, it became unbalanced." Rebecca nodded. "I've started asking myself a question before calling you for help. Would I make this request of any other person in my life? If the answer is no, then I'm probably taking advantage of our relationship." "That's a good filter," I said, touched by her thoughtfulness. "Nicholas suggested it, actually. He pointed out that I would never call a friend at the last minute to pick up the kids or watch the dog without being apologetic and grateful. But with you, I just expected it." Our conversation continued, delving into childhood memories, shared grief over Harold's passing, and hopes for our future relationship. For the first time in years, we spoke as two adult women rather than just mother and daughter. It was refreshing and healing. As the weeks passed, I continued exploring my newfound independence. I joined a senior travel group that planned day trips to nearby attractions. I volunteered at the library 2 mornings a week. I took Judith and 2 other friends to the beach for a girls' weekend, something I'd never have considered before the Maldives awakened my spirit of adventure. Rebecca kept her word about respecting my time. She began texting rather than calling when she needed assistance, always phrasing requests as questions rather than assumptions, and accepting my occasional no with grace. The children, following their parents' example, showed new consideration for my schedule and interests. A particularly heartwarming moment came when Tyler called me directly, which was unusual. "Grandma, I'm doing a school project on interesting people in our family, and I want to interview you about your trip to the Maldives. Is that okay?" "I'd be honored," I told him, deeply touched that my adventure had elevated me to interesting person status in his eyes. During the interview, he asked thoughtful questions about why I'd chosen the Maldives, what I'd learned from traveling alone, and whether I'd been scared. "Were you mad at us?" he asked candidly near the end. "For not taking you on our cruise?" "I wasn't mad," I answered honestly. "I was hurt at being excluded, and then expected to pet sit. But the trip wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about finally prioritizing a dream I'd had for decades." He nodded solemnly. "Mom says sometimes the kindest thing we can do for people we love is to let them be disappointed occasionally. That it's not our job to solve everyone's problems or always say yes." Out of the mouths of babes, Rebecca was not only changing her behavior but teaching her children valuable lessons about healthy boundaries in the process. 6 months after my Maldives adventure, the true test of our new family dynamic arrived when Rebecca and Nicholas announced another family vacation, this time a week at a beach house on the coast. "We've already reserved a room for you, Mom," Rebecca said. "It has a private bathroom and a small sitting area so you can have your own space when you need it. We really want you to join us." "But," Nicholas added, We also understand completely if you'd prefer to do your own thing. No pressure either way." I looked at their sincere faces and felt a rush of gratitude for how far we'd come. "I'd love to join you," I said. "For part of the time. Maybe I'll come for 4 days of your 7-day trip? That way we all get family time and solo time." "That sounds perfect," Rebecca agreed immediately. "And Mom? Thank you for teaching us that loving someone means respecting their autonomy, not just their availability." As the 1-year anniversary of my Maldives trip approached, I found myself reflecting on the profound impact that one decision had made on my life and relationships. By finally putting myself first, I had actually improved our family dynamic rather than damaged it. The travel journal Emma had given me now contained plans for 3 upcoming trips: a wine country tour with Judith, a cruise to Alaska, solo but with a tour group, and a family trip to the Grand Canyon with Rebecca and her crew over the holidays. My Instagram account, to my ongoing amazement, had gained over 1,000 followers, mostly other seniors inspired by my late-in-life adventures. I regularly received messages from women my age saying I had inspired them to book their own dream trips after decades of putting themselves last. On the exact anniversary of my departure for the Maldives, Rebecca and her family surprised me with a special dinner at my favorite restaurant. After the meal, Nicholas handed me a gift bag. Inside was a beautiful framed photo of a sunset over the ocean, clearly taken from my Instagram account. Beneath the image was inscribed, "To Mom/Grandma Evelyn, who taught us that it's never too late to chase your dreams. Thank you for the wake-up call we needed. Love, your family." Tears filled my eyes as I looked at their smiling faces around the table. "Thank you for hearing me," I said. "For really seeing me." "We should be thanking you," Rebecca replied. "Your selfish act actually made us all better people. And better family members." As we finished our dessert, Emma asked, "So, Grandma, where's the next big adventure taking you?" I smiled, feeling the familiar excitement that now regularly accompanied thoughts of the future. "I'm thinking Spain in the fall. I've always wanted to see the Alhambra." "Take lots of pictures for Instagram," Tyler insisted. "Your followers are counting on you." We laughed together, the easy laughter of people who have worked through difficulties and emerged stronger on the other side. Later that night, as I got ready for bed, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at me seemed younger somehow, more vibrant than the faded grandmother who had agreed to dog sit a year ago. My hair was styled in a new, more flattering cut. My posture was straighter. My eyes held a spark that had been missing for too long. The Maldives had given me more than beautiful memories. It had given me back myself. And in finding myself again, I had actually strengthened the bonds with my family rather than weakening them. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for others is to love ourselves enough to set boundaries. Sometimes running away is actually running toward a better version of life for everyone involved. As I drifted off to sleep, I smiled at the thought of what Harold would say if he could see me now. "About time, Evie," he would have chuckled. "About time." And he would have been right. It was about time indeed. Have you ever felt taken for granted by the people you love most? What steps did you take to establish healthier boundaries? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about finding courage in your golden years. And share this video with someone who might need a reminder that it's never too late to prioritize your own dreams. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself.